For today's episode, we're going to sit down with Stephanie and talk about all the unsexy truths of the fashion industry, as well as the intersection of fashion and technology and where we think it's going. Hope you enjoy. Hi guys, welcome back to Out of Office by Bridges. My name is Bella Malvini. I'm your host today, and I'm here with Stephanie. Amazing. For those of you that are new, this podcast is dedicated to bridging the gap between opportunity and ambition for women all across San Francisco and hopefully beyond. And we want to focus on real career trajectories of women, their experiences, and basically hopefully giving you education on what you can do to elevate yourself both personally and professionally. So that's why we're here. And I'm so excited to have Stephanie here.
Yay. Excited to be here.
Yes. And congratulations on your recent promotion. I know we were talking about it a little bit earlier, but do you want to tell us a little bit about your kind of like new role and what that looks like?
Yeah, so I was just recently promoted. I've been with Clare V actually for almost 10 years.
That's crazy.
About 9.5 right now. I know, I cannot believe it's been that long. It feels like 3. That's how fast time has been moving these last several years. I used to oversee all of direct-to-consumer, which included our 14 stores, our website, also what we would all technically call product management and like technology, but at Clare V we just called the system stuff. And then now we just have brought in expertise from the retail industry to lead our stores. So it was a much welcome change. I'm so excited to have our new head of stores. She's amazing. She comes from anthropology and sage.
Nice.
It's just so awesome to have great colleagues helping to lead and grow the business. So now with her at the helm of stores, I'm overseeing our website and technology. So just going much deeper on how we can grow that business.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And for people that might not know, what is your official title at Clare V?
SVP of Digital and Technology.
I feel like this is like totally lame side note. I feel like as soon as the S gets slapped on there, it instantly becomes like way sexier. Like it's like, now I'm really running the show. Before I was running the show, now I'm really running the show.
Well, it's funny because like the day after, nothing changed. So it's definitely still the same job. If anything, it's like more of a relief. You could just get to really dig in. So
that's so cool. I want to hear a little bit more about your background as well, because you have a pretty interesting background in terms of like your previous employers and experiences, and then your education as well. Would you mind taking us on a little bit of a backstory there?
Sure. So I started my career just as a seasonal employee at Old Navy. I just needed a job after school and I didn't want to work at the grocery store. So I worked at Old Navy, met some of my best friends of life still, who I'm in touch with at that job, and then just worked my way up. I mean, I went through school. I was actually studying to be in communications, doing similar to probably today's version of podcasting. And I was going to become a TV news producer. Did not like that at all. And so I just was like, okay, what am I going to do? So I moved to New York and went to Parsons in 2008. And then that jump-started a career in e-commerce and literally just worked my way up. I think of it as a zigzag career because I was always chasing the next learning opportunity and not the next title, which was really important to me. And so, I started at Nicole Miller as an intern, and then their e-commerce coordinator left, and my intern boss / first friend in New York was like, you need to walk into the VP's office and say, you should hire me. And so I did that.
I love that.
And then she hired me. And it was just a lot of that, just like really hard work and looking for what I was enjoying learning and then where that could take me next. And so looking for jobs where you can just lean into that next evolution in your skill set. I'd say that's the thread through my career trajectory.
I love that personally. I feel like a lot of the times people get really hyper fixated on like titles and like, oh, you know, I'm a specialist. I need to become a manager, or I need to become a senior manager. And it's like, I feel like the greatest learning opportunities and the greatest development opportunities come from acquiring skill sets and not necessarily titles. Oh,
I couldn't agree with that more. Like you have to be hungry for the knowledge, you know, because it's what's going to help you solve your day-to-day work challenges. So you know, like, let me think of a first version. Oh, platforms. I mean, in e-commerce.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Shopify was not a thing when I started. That was like some little startup that we were, you know, like, yeah, right. I'm not going to touch that. And so that was 2008. I mean, gosh, it was like, outsourced third-party vendors running websites and companies giving away 30% of their P&L to someone else to solve that little digital problem for them. So you just had to constantly keep up with that. And if you're the person in the room with the knowledge, then guess what? They need you. Mm-hmm. So it just does create a certain level of like job dependency too, you know? Mm-hmm. I think that's maybe part of it, survival.
100%. Yeah. And you also mentioned that you attended Parsons, but I know that you also went to Berkeley.
I did.
Which is really
Go
exciting. Bears. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about the role your education kind of played in your career development and why you decided to maybe prioritize getting an MBA and what like that decision was like?
Yeah. Okay. Gosh, how do I want to think about that? It's kind of the same thing. I'm a lifelong learner. Like I genuinely love learning new things. So if I'm not in school, then I'm learning something else. So after Parsons, obviously the beginning was all learning the career stuff. So you're doing on the job learning. And then once I kind of hit my stride, I think this must have been, it was after Saks because that was a very busy job, like 100 hours a week situation. Then I moved to LA and I was like, okay, I started at Clare V and the car's humming and I know what I'm doing. Let me learn quilting. So then I was learning quilting and then I was taking psychology classes and learning piano. Like I just always have a strong desire to have like novelty of, you know, new information to feed the brain. And at one point I looked into getting an MBA. I talked myself out of it. I did a bunch of LinkedIn research on, you know, what kind of jobs people get with MBAs. And I was like, well, I don't necessarily need that job. I just want continual learning and challenges. And maybe one day I'll own my own company. And it didn't seem critical to have it. And then after the pandemic, a couple of years passed by and I was still just hungry to be in an academic environment. I'm like, what are you doing? Just do it. You want to do it. So I just did it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I'm so glad I did because the people that I have met in my life, I can't imagine not meeting my best friend in life. And I've only known her for 3 years. It's crazy.
That's amazing. And I know a lot of people, especially nowadays, they say the network that comes out of your MBA program is like one of the most valuable things you could possibly have, especially at a program like Berkeley.
Yes,
right?
for
very
sure.
Desirable program.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this a little bit earlier about how you kind of like accidentally stumbled into fashion a little bit.
Yeah.
For many young women who are interested into breaking into the fashion industry, the hardest part often seems to be simply breaking in. Can you give us your perspective on that?
Pound the pavement? It's like none of the answers anyone wants to hear. You know, you have to do the work. And do the work is literally like, look up every contact. And I remember Parsons taught us so much of this, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I was surprised. I remember while we were in class, I was like, man, they really bring in a lot of speakers telling us like how to behave in job interviews and like how to network and how to get creative in networking and how to get your name out there. And I know why they're doing it because it works, you know? And I think it's also just a reputation thing for the school, right?
Yeah,
they
sure.
really want their students to put their best foot forward. And I got lucky because I got the internship at Nicole Miller, but I also stuck my neck out and went for the job once it became open and then they, you know, hired me. And also, by the way, I was the hardest working intern. Like you just,
of course, yeah.
in everything that you get as an opportunity, you have to seize that moment. You know, you have to do your absolute best to not, let me think how to say this. It's not just about putting in the hours. It's about being the proactive employee. You know, it's about asking, what is the next best question I could ask in this moment? What am I not thinking of to think full 360? I remember earlier in my career being in rooms where I didn't know as much as most people in the room. And oftentimes I'd be absorbing information, thinking about like, okay, what might this department be impacted by in this given, whatever, it might be a system implementation or some new vendor we're looking at. It could be anything. You think like, what does this mean for that team? What does this mean for this team? How could I be thinking about this differently? Just to try to fill out that 360 view. And I think that's really important in the beginning of your career to land the job and keep the job.
100%.
Yeah. So even when you're, you know, doing the networking, obviously everyone knows the best practices on digging through LinkedIn, finding who knows the person you need to get in touch with, or who knows the person who knows the person, you know, how many degrees of separation you're going to go through, but just show up to the events, meet people who can introduce you to people, and try to do things that are beyond just the cold email outreach.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
Yeah. I think people get intimidated because they have this idea of what the fashion industry is, this like elusive, beautiful, untouchable space. And, you know, you see Project Runway and you see Sex and the City and all these shows, or soon to be Devil Wears Prada 2. I mean, it just paints a picture of an industry that is not 100% the reality. That's reality for like 2% of the fashion industry. And it's basically what the magazines used to be, right? I think the reality of the fashion industry is that there are hundreds of thousands of just jobs to be done. You know, it's a heavily operational world. We're talking about, you know, the pipes that keep companies running, you know, and I think if you learn how to do that really well and you just learn how to be really useful and pay attention, and I think don't expect it to be sexy. That might be the key word. I know early on when I was managing teams at Saks, that was often their perception is like, but it's fashion. I'm like, but it's merchandising a website. It's, you know, attributing as fast as you can because we need to move on to the next 800 products that need to go live next week. Like there just are realities that you can step in and do a really great job. And as you grow into your career, then you start to get to work on strategy and forward-looking initiatives. And that is when it gets really exciting. But first, you got to just get in and do the job.
Yeah. There's still, I think we lose sight of like the B2B element of what drives the business, especially in fashion, where, you know, we rely so heavily on media and marketing to like drive this illusion of what fashion is. But like the B2B for fashion still completely exists. Like there's still businesses. They have to operate their like inventory and their POS systems and like all those really, really unsexy, quote unquote, I should say in quotes, unsexy things, because that's what drives the business forward.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where you can actually have a really big breakthrough. If you can connect some of those efficiencies or data insights, et cetera, to the reality that the customer is living every day, like in your store or visiting your website, you know, you can make a big impact in a really small amount of time.
Yeah. I feel like one thing that you touched on that we actually just focused on a little bit at Bridges is how to build your personal brand, and how that is not just indicative of like your personal brand online, but how people experience you in real life.
Yeah.
And how that is a form of currency in a way, especially in an industry like beauty and fashion, where how you carry yourself says a lot about yourself. And you're also representing the brand, right? You are an extension of the brand. I think that's really important.
It is. Yeah. Are you a nice person to work with?
Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
Yeah. At Clare V, when you walk into the office, we have this poster hanging on the left side of the wall, right in the entrance. And it's that famous poster, I forget the artist, and it says, be kind, be kind, be kind. And like, it matters so much.
Yeah.
From meeting number one, you know, it's just how you show up. And if you are nice to sit in a meeting with, because that also means that maybe you're nice to solve problems with, you know, and maybe you're not a difficult person to span a career with, you know, elbow to elbow. So I think it's really important.
And one thing that I feel like is also super important when you're establishing your brand, whether it be at a new company or a new job, is credibility and reliability. That's an extension of asserting and developing your brand. Is, are you somebody people want to go to? Are you solutions oriented? Do you show up consistently? Can people rely on you? Do you follow through? That's like, those are also legitimate extensions of your brand.
Completely. Yeah. This goes back to like how you're operating at every moment, sort of in the meetings I was talking about earlier, where you're thinking about everything and trying to fill out that 360 picture. The same is true in what you're describing, the persistence, reliability. If you say you're going to be somewhere on time, be 15 minutes early. My dad always said, if you show up on time, you're already 15 minutes late.
100%.
I got it. Oh, it's seared in my brain, you know? Another thing he says all the time is all good things come from work. And that's definitely in me. And I think it probably shows up in my work that I really care a lot about not only myself doing a good job, but my team doing a good job, my coworkers and colleagues having success as well, and helping each other to be successful. And I think that can show up from day one at an internship. These are things that like, you don't need 10 years of experience to show that you're a really valuable employee by having these soft skills with you every day.
Yeah, 100%. One question that I did have for you, being that, as you mentioned, you kind of stumbled into fashion. Obviously, we live in the Bay Area, and it's very expensive to live here. And I feel like people often who are really passionate about breaking into fashion, and it might be requiring a lot of resilience to break into fashion and break that barrier. But also wanting to prioritize like having a sustainable wage and things like that. And sometimes earlier in your career, especially in fashion, the compensation is significantly less than maybe something that of tech, for example. So I was wondering, how do you encourage someone deciding between pursuing a creative industry that they love versus choosing a path that might offer more immediate financial stability? What is like, especially somebody who has had immense success in retail and you've kind of broken down through that, like, how do you think about that? Or what is something to think about as you're kind of going through navigating that challenge?
I mean, that is like a deep personal values question in my mind.
True.
Because for some people, money is a financial motivator.
Yeah.
I would not put myself on that list.
Totally fair. Totally fair.
And I think you do need to reconcile with that. Here's what I'll say. It's not one or the other. Like you can definitely do a both and, but you're going to need to design that life.
Well, especially now with like the integration of AI capabilities and like fashion tech being a new space that's super exciting, which we will get into later. Yeah. But like now there's more intersection of the possibility of those things.
Yeah.
But before that didn't exist.
No, not at all. It was like, what are those techies talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know, just fix it. But yeah, I would say I have known that about myself for, gosh, like I don't know, it sounds crazy when I say this, but like I have early memories of being a kid, like 10, 11-year-old age kid, thinking I don't want money to drive my life. Like I just don't want that to be what defines my experience. I don't know why I was thinking about that at such a young age. But
very introspective for such a young age.
Probably, how I was raised. I wasn't raised in that kind of an environment. But so yeah, the work and the interest of like my personal interest in the work is definitely what drives me. You can build financially stable careers in fashion. I mean, I will not repeat how much my first job in New York paid me. It was abysmal. I definitely would have made a lot more working at McDonald's, but I loved it and I learned a lot, and I grew so much so fast in the beginning of my career, just from a C above everything we just discussed, just like putting in that, hard work and showing up every day. So you get there.
And obviously now you're operating at a senior executive level, which is amazing and such an accomplishment. Many of our listeners, I would say, are currently in more mid-management roles. Okay. And so for someone deciding whether or not they want to pursue an executive leadership role or remain as an individual contributor, what do you think they should know about or think about when transitioning to managing teams?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I love managing teams. Like that has
you seem
to
like a people person, so that doesn't surprise me.
That has to be there for you, And the thing is, in the beginning of your career, it is all about your output, your direct executional output, right? Like you organize the files, you got the samples in the sample room together, you did the best you could to fix that, picture in Photoshop, whatever. You're actually executing. As soon as you start managing other people, your job, like the actual job to be done, changes, and it's very soft skill oriented. And for many people, I think that bridge is a pretty jarring change because there's no playbook. I went to Parsons, I went to a fashion school. There's no educational process where they're like, okay, and when you become a manager, here's what you're going to do. It doesn't exist, And so you have to navigate that on your own is the first thing. And I think for some people that's very startling and maybe they don't enjoy it in the beginning. So I think you have to look at it first and say, okay, what are my goals now that I lead people, right? It's not about what I do anymore. It's about what we do. It's about the output of our team. And it's also lots of empathy. It's about the success of each individual team member. Like what's their learning curve, their growth path? You want your team, or I will speak for myself. I want my team members to leave better than they came, and learn and have fun on the process. So I think if that sounds appealing to you, you might like managing people. But if it doesn't, and if you just want to put your head down and do the work, then explore jobs that allow you to do that.
That actually feeds into my next question about like leading teams and company direction, especially as you jump from a VP to an SVP. Obviously, there's more to manage. And as you're stepping into managing larger teams and influencing company direction, how do you approach conversations, like you specifically as a leader, on team growth, performance, and the broader trajectory of the organization?
With In my team or within the leadership team?
I would say both. I'm curious as to both.
Within my team, bottoms up, I really just want to know, what do you want to learn? You know, what are you envisioning for your career? And I can't necessarily promise I can make all those dreams come true, but we can find the best, closest fit here. So, you know, one piece of context that's really important is Clare V is, we don't use this word in retail as startup, but we are basically a bootstrapped startup. I'm very proud of that too. Lots of hard work and love went into the building of this business, but the nature of a startup means
the intensity.
The intensity and the breadth of your role is always, you know, more than say a larger enterprise scale retail company where you're going to go much deeper in a narrower scope. And so that's kind of fun, you know, because people come into our company and they may come in as a certain job function, but they're most certainly going to wear a few more hats than that, you know, and so they can kind of lean into one direction or another. So that's really cool for development of the team members. At the leadership level, it's a completely different perspective. It's top down, you know, you're thinking about, okay, what are we solving as a company? What are the objectives this year? What are the resources we need tied to those objectives? And like, who among our team members can tackle that? So it's sort of a meet in the middle situation, you know, because there just are certain projects and priorities you have to get done in a given year. And so that's probably the best description I can give it.
Yeah. No,
top down,
totally
bottom up.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to get into something a little sexier, which is fashion and technology.
Ooh.
I know. I'm kind of excited. So obviously there's like a huge rise in the fashion tech space right now.
Yeah.
Huge. Which I find exhilarating because I don't know if I shared this before, but I actually initially went to school for fashion marketing at an art school. I did not get my degree from there, but that was my initial trajectory before life happened. So, and I work in technology currently. So the intersection of the two, I feel like is a really, really exciting field. Yeah. And it obviously feels like it's accelerating extremely rapidly right now. And we're seeing more companies, more roles, and more innovation emerging within that space. From your perspective, obviously other than AI, what is driving this growth?
Availability of tech that actually solves our problems. Like literally like use case match. I mean, I look around, it's so exciting right now. I couldn't agree more. And like, dare I say, this is our best moment yet for retail in technology, because it 100%. Feels like, you know, eras past of technology evolution was like, okay, what's the application for retail? Like we could kind of make that work for us, but not really. But now, oh my gosh, AI definitely feels like our time.
Yeah. I remember, this is like super niche and very specific to me, but I worked at Lululemon as a manager for a few years in college. And I remember seeing their POS system, and they're like, I think they were one of the, I don't know if they're the first, don't quote me on this, but they're one of the first companies to use RFID technology in their stores. Yeah. And I remember when that like broke like the efficiencies of companies. Yeah. And so it's so funny to think of like going from like RFID inventory systems to like completely AI like ground up innovation for customer solutions and like and retail solutions in general. It's just like it's kind of mind boggling.
It's huge. Yeah. And I think the thing is like, I'm going to Shop Talk next week, which is the big annual retail, one of the big annual retail conferences. And I'm very interested to see what they're going to talk about and just where the focus is at, I guess. I mean, the topic is AI, but that's like saying the sky, I don't know. The sky is, exactly. Like it's air. There's just, it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous at this point. And so, what AI for what? Because obviously, you know, we're doing all the research, looking across all our different use cases, but what's really going to happen is we all have workflows. This is the way I think about it, at least. We all have workflows that drive how we operate. And so where in the workflow can we be best helped by AI? What is that solution? And what I'm seeing from the 100 sales emails I get a day and demos that I take out of curiosity, there are a lot of solutions that seem really cool, but the underlying data has to be there. Data is still king. And so how do you produce that? Whether it's data from a tech pack, you know, that there are AI solutions that will help your product development teams and your designers create their tech packs. And what are you doing with that data? Like, how are you storing that data to then help the next step in the workflow, which is, you know, attribution and rich data enrichment on the website to drive customer experiences. So there's just, it's so connected. And I don't know, I get really excited when I think about that because problems that we have wanted to solve for so long seem now really possible, like fit prediction or, virtual try on, an actual returns prevention solution,
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think one thing that I think about too, and this is completely a side note, but I obviously work for what I call like a tech behemoth of a company, right? Like if you're in the B2B space, you obviously know this company very, very well. And it's really interesting to think about when all these emerging new technologies are coming out where you like we said, they're very solution specific, right?
Yeah.
And they create amazing opportunities for efficiencies. But then you go back to the data and the data resources. And like you said, how's that data being stored? What data are you referencing? And what does it come from? Data is everything within AI, right? You're only as good as your data.
Yeah.
And so I think about when you're thinking about prioritizing either newer and evolving technologies and companies versus, maybe like a B2B tech behemoth, like where do you want to go for maximizing, one, potential integration, and two, accuracy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just something that
Huge.
I think about.
Governance.
Yeah.
Governance is everything.
And in your opinion, are there any brands or companies right now that you think are doing particularly interesting work at the intersection of fashion and technology?
Yes, I think, I was thinking about this. Is there anything like really fun and sexy on the front end? I think the first wave of this that's going to be so meaningful to retailers is a lot of the back office
100%.
stuff. Like, we're right down the street from Levi's, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm sure that inside of those four walls, they are looking at, if not already have implemented, AI for design and allocation strategy, merchandising strategy, things like that. I know Gap did a big announcement for tech pack creation, for the design to tech pack creation that they're using. I forgot the name of the tool now, but so that's the stuff to me that's super interesting because this is where a lot of the challenges are, is just, not to belabor the point, but connecting that data from the beginning process
100%.
all the way to the end. I think that's the thing that's going to be the most impactful, the earliest. Customer facing stuff, you have virtual try on. Warby's been doing virtual try on for a long time. A lot of these, obviously I look at handbag websites more than anything else.
Yeah.
Coach, is doing some great things with showing different bag sizes, things like that. And then there's a lot of really cool stuff that consumers don't even know that we're using AI for. Well, not we at Clare V, but I'm aware of it because I'm looking at it, is just image creation, like extending your studio imagery beyond just the one shot you took into like your flat lays, into variations of, 3 or 4 different lifestyle imagery options just from the one photo that you took. So they're still very much doing like art direction, styling, taking the photograph, but then making one photo shoot turn into, 4 kind of thing. That's really, maybe I won't say those retailers' names because I don't know if they would want to be called out, but allocations, like inventory management, the biggest asset for any retailer to manage efficiently. There's really great AI assisted solutions out there now for predicting what you should buy, when you should buy it, which also informs your supply chain. So all the big enterprise companies are already doing this stuff. All the people here in the Bay Area that we all know in retail, they're already doing that. They started that 2 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what's really cool is how accessible the technology is now to brands of our size, D2C retailers, brands that just don't have, a $2 trillion a year top line. Can't afford that technology, but now we can. Yeah. It's way more accessible. So,
and I think there was one point that you mentioned that I really want to drive home, and especially after working in like the B2B space, the efficiencies and the processes that in the back end that we're focusing on optimizing efficiencies and just making everything flow more seamlessly. Yeah. In the end, that makes the experience significantly better for the customer.
Totally.
And they might not realize it as like an immediate impact, but in terms of a long-term impact, it makes the direct-to-consumer space like significantly better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Product attribution is the heart of of any digital business.
Yes.
The website is driven by the data from all the upstream systems. This is like such an unsexy topic. It's
one of those things where it is so unsexy, but like actually it is like what creates like the seamless experience for the customer.
Yeah. I mentioned before Fit Predictor. That is a space I'm going to watch really closely. And especially at Shop Talk, I'm very curious to see what they come up with. We have had, and they're still very much live today, kind of the go-to, top Fit Predictor vendors out there who I won't name. But when you dig into the solution, it's not like actually data backed. It's sort of this like guesstimate based on a couple of brands you mentioned, and you're like, but that's not real. The real fit prediction is going to come from what is the grading of this garment? What are the like actual technical specifications for every single size, so that when I tell you, I'm this height, this weight, this figure shape, all the prompt questions they ask you, it knows from the tech pack exactly how this garment was intended to fit. So it's giving you a real fit prediction. That's a major unlock that should be possible. So and just knowing the data and being, a retailer, that's a solution, for example, that I'm like, come on, who's going to do it?
I hate to say this out loud because obviously they are like such a big company, but like, I feel like Revolve is like already... There's no way they aren't investing like so much money into something like that.
Good.
With their like direct to consumer and their turnaround time and everything. Like imagine how much money they would save on like returns and like
huge.
I can't even think about that.
I know. Any apparel retailer. I mean standard return rates 45 to 50%. That's crazy.
And honestly, not that we need to go down this rabbit hole of like Revolve returns, but like I don't even want to know what their return percentage is.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I'm sure.
Crazy to think about.
Probably higher.
Yeah, for sure. In your role as a senior vice president of digital and technology, how do you personally approach integrating innovation and technology within the business? And what would you say, this is a personal question, but like as like a percentage of your role, like how much do you think is like centered around that innovation piece?
Such a good question, actually. And I feel like for the listeners, what's really helpful to put into context is the size of your company and the task at hand, right? So you're always solutioning for the context that you're in. If I'm solutioning at Levi's, just as we're down the street and it's top of mind, my access to resources is huge, vastly different.
Yeah.
So how I'm thinking about solving our business problems through an innovative lens and what I'm prioritizing, first of all, is going to go much deeper, and the scope of that is going to be much larger, right? I remember when I was at Saks, there was no such thing as like, what kind of questions can we ask? It was like, no. Just write the business case. You have an idea, go prove the numbers. The funding is there. You just need to prove that the ROI is worth it, and it ladders up to an objective we have as a company. So much fun. Obviously a lot more bureaucracy at a company of that size, but also more access to resources. 100%. So at Clare V, the way I think about that is how can we do more with less as a company? Because we have a very small team. We don't have, the budgets of Levi's. And what are the absolute biggest growth drivers for us as a brand? So it really forces discipline around what the company needs at this particular moment in our growth cycle. You just can't solve it all.
Yeah.
So like for us, we're acquiring new customers, we're growing and expanding even just in the domestic market. We have 14 stores in the top handful of U.S. markets, but we're not anywhere in the Southeast. There's like growth opportunities in those kind of areas. And so what that implies is a certain set of marketing mix. And so that I'm kind of taking you through my thought process because like that informs how I'm thinking about how digital can support our growth.
You have different needs.
Yeah, we have different needs. And so then it gets into like, okay, well, how can we better tell that story to a first-time visiting customer? How do we win that first impression? Like, what is the best foot forward that we can provide? So I think it's top down. Just where are we at in our growth, and what is the most important growth lever at this time? Yeah.
I'm curious as to what you think brands potentially get wrong in the fashion space when they think about their digital transformation.
Shiny new penny. Look at all the cool things it does. let me say that differently, not solving for, actually, that is the problem. We have to flip that, is rather than solving for the problem, like going through this thought process of business objective problem that's in your way and how can technology help us solve it, and then you go find that best technology, that takes discipline, right? And instead you have all these vendors coming to you all the time and you go, oh, but there's this new, like, but look at this VR tool. We could show people what the bags look like on their body. Is that a problem that we need to solve right now? Is that the most important problem that we need to solve at this moment? I think that's probably the number one thing.
That makes sense. What do you think the most successful fashion companies understand about modern retail that others haven't figured out yet?
The technology.
I feel like we're beating a dead horse.
There's
a common theme.
Because, well, let me say that differently, actually. It's putting the customer at the center of it.
100%.
Which sounds so obvious, but like on a day-to-day basis, even we at Clare V challenge ourselves to really do that, because, you know, running a business does come with its set of tasks, you know, and so you're just sort of going through each of those, you know, recurring processes, seasonal, annual, blah, blah, blah. And when you dig into the numbers and you see what the data is telling you about where your business is at this time, it's just really challenging yourself to like, what's the practical solution here? Like, what does our customer really want? What does she not want? You know, and just making sure that you put that at the center of it and don't solve for B when she's asking for A. I mean, it really takes a lot of discipline, I think. And the companies,
100%.
Yeah, I think of like Reformation's a company I look at a lot. I think they do a really great job. And to me, what comes through in their digital experience is discipline. Like
that's actually the perfect example of one of the most customer-centric, like forward-thinking brands.
Yeah.
Like truly A+ standard.
Yeah, really. I mean, the browse experience, I mean, it's just the amount of editing that they do to cut the clutter.
I could only imagine.
Yeah.
I
think it's a good one.
For women who are ambitious and interested in industries like fashion, retail, or digital commerce, what advice would you give them about building a career that is both fulfilling and sustainable?
Okay, wait, I love this question because it's so different now than it was 20 years ago.
100%.
When I was entering retail. I mean, it used to be start on the ground floor, learn how to sell, learn what how the customer thinks, and just get like, you know, really good at doing the job. Now I would say learn the tools immediately. Like just understand tools like LLMs, like Whisperflow, like thinking what else do I use that's really fun. Now I can't think of a single AI tool, but learn those tools and create your workflow because it absolutely is expected in the future, like even 2 years from now future. So do that. It's a both and. Learn the tools and learn the business. And the earlier that you learn the business acumen is, you know, the word that we always use in development in our retail teams, learn that 360. Like don't just learn your role if you're interested in merchandising. You want to be a buyer. Don't just learn how to run the analytics and be a buyer. Learn what's important to marketing. How does marketing bring products to market? Learn, you know, what matters for cost efficiency, you know, from a P&L perspective. Learn how the product is made. You really just need to understand how the whole company works because that will reap benefits in the end. So start early on that. Start early learning how the whole process works. Don't just stay in your one area.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. This was amazing. I feel like I learned so much. And also we just had like a very candid conversation about why fashion and tech is like sexy, but not sexy at the same time, which I really appreciate. So thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.